So remember back in 2022, I was talking to this girl and we'd sort of been talking for 2 years. Back then I used to be like pretty young and I didn't really used to be in the gym or anything. And I sort of really wanted to be with this girl. You know, she was the first girl I ever talked to. We would play video games all day long. And me and her sort of got really close and we sort of became best friends and we would talk all day and all this shit. And I was sort of starting to develop more and more feelings, and I just couldn't help it. I was like, feeling like I wanted to be with her. And so I end up sort of proposing to her, and she bluntly rejects me. And back then, that shit was catastrophic to me. Like, I genuinely, after that whole situation happened, obviously, like, I didn't talk to her after. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm not talking to this bitch anymore. So I stopped talking to her and everything. And I had this insane feeling of rejection because I never thought that I would get rejected. I thought that this was just mutual and like it was like all the movies I watched back when I was young and shit. And obviously it wasn't, clearly. And so obviously I got into a whole bunch of different things like the red pill and all these things, but also this rejection had opened up massive doors of motivation for me. Because for once, I actually now had felt the motivation to start going to the gym and to start trying to improve myself. And so I signed up to this karate gym. And I basically sort of, because I was like really young, I had this sort of mindset that like gyms wouldn't let me in because I was like under 18 and whatever, under 16. And so they just like wouldn't let me in. And to my own surprise, this karate place that I was about to sign up in actually had a gym. And so I started training in the gym that was in the karate gym whilst also training in the karate. And obviously it wasn't really that great. Like I would sort of like do that. Eventually I went full time into just kind of going to the gym there. I would go like 6 days a week and everything because I realized the main thing that I cared about was the gym. Obviously, I also cared about the karate, but it was sort of like this side hobby more than anything else. And so I used the motivation of this rejection, which it lasted pretty long with me. It lasted more than the average individual. Like the whole situation stayed in my head all the way through 2023. And I basically would just sort of, like train real hard and push myself and listen to all these like cringe breakup audios and like rejection audios and shit. And obviously to me back then it was like really cool because like sort of I could relate to it and shit. And within a couple of months, like about I think 3 or 4 months, I'd put on 10 kilograms of muscle. And I went from 60 kilos, I went from being this hella skinny little shit, if you will, to at least something a little more decent. I was like 70 kilos. I kind of was all right. Like I wasn't perfect, but like I was kind of decent. I was starting to lift a little heavier in the gym. I was doing, I believe back then I was doing like 17 and a half kilogram dumbbells on incline. So like that shit was pretty impressive to me back then. And not to mention like obviously I was like a 15-year-old or 14-year-old back then. So like that was kinda impressive, I guess. Regardless, obviously like 15-year-olds now are like doing triple this shit. They're probably doing triple my bench press right now, so I couldn't really talk. But and although I was young back then and it was sort of like this, kind of like cringy story of like, he got rejected, then he put on 10 kilograms of muscle. It's still one of those really inspiring stories back then, and it really meant a lot to me back then because those first 10 kilograms were the hardest for me because I had to learn how to start bulking, start weighing my food, start tracking my protein, start doing all these different things that would eventually let me, gain these 10 kilograms of muscle. And obviously, like, a whole bunch of things have changed with the 10 kilograms of muscle. It wasn't just 10 kilograms of muscle, it was 10 kilograms of character and, personal development. And so that shit would add up pretty quickly. Obviously, having clicked on a video talking about how to deal with a rejection, you probably have gone through something similar right now. And obviously, it was sort of a long introduction of talking about the whole story, but I really like to try and nail in the sort of point of just sort of what to expect this video to be about. So it can probably relate to person one, like the first version of me, where you probably felt a lot of pain. You probably are going through something right now. You've probably been rejected and this kind of shit. And that shit totally sucks because I remember being that exact same position. I believe it was like, no, that shit was about a year ago. But like, yeah, like about a year ago, this was sort of a different story, like a more recent one. But obviously, like, you just kind of get used to rejection after a while. This girl I was talking to her. We talked for like 3 months, I believe. And then out of nowhere, she literally just blocks me. And obviously, she could tell I was like kind of hinting at like something. And like, I just woke up one day and I found myself blocked. Obviously, back then I was like, like I still sort of was like, damn, like, fuck that bitch. Why would she block me? But like, looking at it, it's like, fuck it. Like, does it really matter? You know? Regardless, rejection sucks. And obviously, the main thing that sort of happens when we sort of get rejected is we feel like it's a personal attack. Like, how dare you? Like, why would you do this? And it's because it just genuinely hits right at our egos. And you almost sort of sit there and question, am I worthy enough? Like, if she's rejected me, does that mean she's better than me? And the reality is, in these sort of dynamics, the one that gets rejected is the one that doesn't perceive themselves highly. And it's all about how you perceive yourself. Because when you perceive yourself in a low manner, you will act that way. And when you act that way, people will start to think of you as a low manner sort of, kind of guy. And so then they'll just sort of be like, oh, well, I'm higher than this guy. And so they'll immediately just kind of have their own reactions of rejecting you, or if you're in a relationship with them, they'll break up with you. And that was sort of the thing that happened in my recent, not so recent, but like a year ago kind of breakup. And that shit destroyed me. In fact, like you could sort of see in the channel history when I used to like post consistently, like fucking destruction of the channel because I was destroyed myself and I was just like, I didn't record any videos. I didn't do much. And so in general, rejection is truly a pain in the ass. But the reality is we humans tend to think that this world is just, a coincidence, that this world just happened to happen. And obviously, if any of you are religious, you would know that that's simply just not true. We were created by God and we were put on this earth to do something. We have a purpose on this earth. And as we walk in this earth, so be it, we have certain things that will happen to us as tests. Because we get tested all the time in this earth, because this supposed life is really just a sort of big test for the next one. If you understand anything about life, this is just sort of a small explanation. And so people just live in this life and they think, oh, fuck this coincidence, fuck that coincidence, because they think, yeah, well, like we're just living in one big coincidence. But in reality, these things happen as tests. That rejection you have, that betrayal, that sense of shittiness that you feel, it is all but nothing, simply just a fucking test. You are being tested to go ahead and fucking either go through this obstacle or fail. And I like this whole kind of scene in Berserk. If you know anything about Berserk, you'll sort of know this specific scene where after Guts sort of defeats Griffith, in this sort of one-to-one duel, he goes on, like, as he's walking his own way, he sort of like has this like inner dialogue, if you will. And like the specific quote is, "You're going to be all right. You stumbled over a stone in the road. It means nothing. Your goal lies far beyond this, doesn't it? I'm sure you'll overcome this. You'll walk again soon." And he's saying this to Griffith, which is his friend, the leader of all their group. Like, he was the leader and he wanted to basically free himself from his leader, so he dueled him and he won. And so he was saying this thinking that Griffith would just go ahead and like get over this. And if you know anything about Berserk, he doesn't get over it. In fact, he destroys the entire storyline. Everything gets fucked up, and Griffith ends up destroying his life and the lives of all the people who were in the story with him. And so you can either be the Griffith who gets upset over this one simple test from life, and you end up essentially going on a downward spiral, because a lot of people do, if you see this shit. Or you could just sort of consider it a stone on the road, if you will, and simply get up and walk again. And it's hard to say this shit to someone, because it's like there's a lot of emotion that you would not be feeling. You're just feeling neutral. They're feeling negatively charged, right? But it's like that advice still applies. And at the end of the day, think about it. Like, you might feel the pain right now, but like in about 6 months, you really won't be feeling much pain, would you? Like, in about 6 months, 12 months, would you really fucking care? You probably would have met like 10 other chicks. Like, it wouldn't really fucking matter. And at some point, like, most of the people who hurt over rejections, and this is not like, this isn't offending anyone, I'm just sort of stating a fact, that most of the people who are suffering from rejections often haven't really had that much relationships. And that's actually a good thing. That means you're really pure. Because a lot of degenerates, as you could probably see in our world today, they just kind of get used to it. They really get used to this feeling of rejection because they've been rejected so many times, it doesn't even matter anymore. It's like the person who gets used to, sort of having degenerate, sex and shit. They just simply just get used to it. It's like a fucking lifestyle to them. And it's totally disgusting, obviously. It removes every sense of purity that they have, which leaves them as this disgusting fucking entity. Remember that this just reflects how pure you are. And obviously, if you did get used to it, obviously, without going ultra degenerate, that would still be a good thing. Like, the more rejections you go through, the more you just sort of adapt and you kind of understand this doesn't really have to do anything with my self-worth. Like, I'm still a giga Chad, because that's the way you should always think about yourself. And, this chick just didn't want anything. It doesn't reflect anything about me. It reflects something about her, right? I want you to put this into steps, and I'll try and be quick with this because, like, we've already been talking for too long. So the first step is trying to channel your energy into something productive. And, a lot of people most people channel their energy into the gym, because honestly, the gym's just the easiest way to do it. Physical workouts just absolutely freaking, like, physical pain really just numbs the mental pain. And it's something that most people like sort of would experience eventually when they sort of go to the gym, which is a pretty cool fucking feeling. You don't have to fucking take drugs to fucking feel that shit. You could really just fucking go to the gym. And not only does it really fucking do that, it also fucking helps you build a good physique. And who doesn't fucking want that? It's a massive way of self-improvement and improves you in basically every aspect of life, because it builds you discipline to pursue other areas and everything. And so try and channel your energy into the gym. If you don't want to go to the gym, try and channel it into some form of work or try to make money, business. Anything that you can channel your energy in, even if it's martial arts, anything. It will be better than you simply sitting there and scrolling on your Instagram all day. Do something with this energy. You could either waste it and you could just like, I don't know, like smoke cigarettes like I did when I fucking got rejected by that girl, or you could fucking use that energy instead of fucking wasting it. And you'll end up having a lot of fucking, results that can show for it. The second step is simply just trying to get better. Because if you don't, then the only way will be downward. And so that's why, like, I go back to the sort of Griffith example. Griffith let everything get destroyed purely because he just didn't care. He was so hurt by it that he didn't care about anything. And he ended up getting his life destroyed by simply making a whole bunch of big mistakes in a row. And so the same could sort of be said if you don't end up fucking fixing yourself. It was one sort of, incident that was out of your control because you don't fucking control other people. And, it happened to not work. So just fuck it. Move on, Go to the next prospect. And more importantly, just try and get better. Because oftentimes, if you've gotten rejected, and it's obviously like even I fucking get rejected. So it's like, it's not really, people like Andrew Tate fucking get rejected. It's like if someone that freaking monumentally successful gets rejected, then it's pretty normal for everyone to get rejected. But the main point is that you want to look at yourself and try and better yourself, because chances are you probably aren't in the best spot yourself. You probably don't have an amazing physique. You probably don't have, an insane business that's generating a whole bunch of money. You're probably not on mass self-improvement where you can think in the spot and your mind is clear and, you have these sort of specific traits of someone who's on self-improvement. And so, the first and main thing that I would sort of do is try and get these things in line. Because once these things are in line, your whole perception of the world will change. Because, you'll basically have this different mindset in your head. Essentially like wearing a fucking pair of glasses and looking at the world in a different fucking view. And don't just hear this and get all motivated. Start fucking doing it now. Start setting some goals. Start striving for something. Like, if you're going to do something, then do it now. Because most likely, if you say, I'm not really going to do it. Oh, sure, I'll do it later. You're not going to fucking do it. Like, both me and you know this shit. If you say, I'll set my goals later, then you won't fucking do it. And it's not just about setting the goals, but it's actually about setting a plan to achieve these goals. Because if you don't, then how will you fucking actually go on and commit to it? And so, set your fucking goals. Set what you need to fucking do to get over this shit. If you weigh 60 kilos, aim to be 80 by the end of the year or something. Try and gain as much muscle as possible. If you don't have a business, start a business. If you are employed and you probably hate your job and shit, try and fucking get out. Escape the matrix, whatever you want to fucking call this stupid shit. If you're not on self-improvement, get on self-improvement. It's like all these different things will end up helping you long-term far more than you realize. And there is far more deeper meaning to all this life than simply just doing these. But these are the first step that anyone would do so they would get deeper into this. So they would understand why their life is theirs. So they figure out their purpose. So they will end up doing a lot of different things that will eventually lead them to having the best life here, but also the next life, having the best life in the next life. The final note I'll end with is this period is a period you'll be proud of, because these periods where you start to actually go on self-improvement and you start to want to improve yourself and you have a genuine desire in your heart, even if it's powered by negative emotion, to improve, like, you will see massive results in this period and you'll be thankful for yourself. You sitting there right now watching this video, you 6 months from now is grateful for you if you commit to the work. And so that's, he could either be proud of you or he could genuinely be, annoyed and, disgusted at you. And so you choose that by what actions you take today. Regardless, that's really all there was to it for this video. If you're interested in getting more, personal one-on-one help, I have coaching calls, so I can basically help you with anything on your fitness journey, whether it's fitness, self-improvement, business, life decisions, purpose, any of these things. I could basically, and I have other certain calls about health and whatever, like all these different things that I sort of have been studying about for years. You could basically DM me on Instagram and we could, get a coaching call. And if you're interested in more fitness sort of coaching, like a 6-month coaching program, this kind of shit, I also have the Thrive Attainer, but it's not for everyone because it's a pretty high ticket sort of service, and I don't usually take on that much people. So basically all I'm saying is it's kind of expensive and most people wouldn't be able to afford it, but definitely check it out if you do want to. And that's all there is to it for this video. And so obviously subscribe if you haven't already. I post videos like this one trying to help you in your own fitness journey, in your own self-improvement journey, in your own dating, looks maxing, whatever, all this shit. And yeah, and so that's really all there is to it. As long as you commit to the work, you'll be getting your results.